So both say we're up to Lamed Ches Amid Aleph. We're almost up to the Mishnah, but we have a few lines here to finish up before the Mishnah. Actually, 2.5 lines, which says Saba v'Yava. So let's just see if we can get the case of Saba v'Yava. Saba v'Yava v'nichsei safek. So now we have a case where the Safek himself, who might be the son of the late Reuven, or the son of the live Shimon, he himself dies. And now the question is, who collects his estate? Who inherits? So he says here, I'm going to just read the commentary. He says, Hasaba toev shenechto hasafek hu ben hames. Just one second. Wait, just 1 second. Hasaba toev shenechto safek hu ben hames. Right, so that's Reuven. So let's just figure this out. If the Safek is the son of Reuven, then the Saba gets first rights to the estate of the Safek. Let me just think why that, because Shimon is only an uncle. And a grandfather comes before an uncle. Let's see if I'm right. Asaba kodem liyav mirusha shekain adam shemeiselo banim. So Reuven died without any children. Ein lo yoresh. Ein bo yibum. Is yarsho aviv. Im ein aviv lemes. Yorsho avi ha'av, below acha. Again, what we said is correct, that the grandfather comes before the uncle. There's just one thing that confuses me here. I mean, he more or less says what we said, but understand one thing. Again, Reuven died, and he left Shimon. I'm sorry, he left Safek, we called him, right? Reuven died. Why? Because Reuven was married to Sarah. We're not sure if together they conceived this Safek, or maybe Shimon now marries Sarah because he's Miyabim, his brother's wife. Maybe the Safek is the son of Shimon. Now the Saba is claiming that the Safek is the son of Reuven, and therefore Saba inherits before an uncle. That's what I think is being said over here. Yeah. Now, Hayavam Toin. That's simple, right? Shimon's going to claim that the Safek is his son. What do we call it? A ben Sheva L'Shem, right? And therefore, with the death of the Safek, the father comes before the grandfather. Oh, 1 second, before the grandfather. Yeah. Right, he's always the grandfather, right? Whether he's the grandfather because the Safek is the son of Reuven, or whether his grandfather is the son, or whether, the Safek is the son of Shimon. In any event, Yaakov is the grandfather. But a grandfather gets trumped by a father. So obviously, Shimon, the Yavam, is claiming the Safek is my son. The grandfather is claiming that the suffix is Reuven's son. No, so it's Reuven's son. Why not split the Yerusha between Reuven and Shimon? The answer is because Shimon is only an uncle, and Yaakov is a grandfather. And grandfather comes before the uncle. Now we go on. Oh, Saba the suffix b'nichsei yavam. Oh, so now Shimon is going to die. So let's see if we can work this out. He has a whole paragraph. Let's see if we can get it on our own. So that's always the best way of doing it. Then we understand this better. So now Shimon dies. Of course, the Saba is going to claim that the suffix is the son of Reuven. And therefore, he doesn't get anything. He goes back to the father, which is the grandfather. Correct? The suffix is going to claim that he's the son of Shimon. So I would say Yachloku in this case. Let's see what happens. Oh, Havimaman Amutul of suffix, I didn't cheat. Okay? I mean, again, it's pretty simple. But let's read the commentary just to make sure we didn't go off on a tangent. It says, suffix, Saba v'suffix b'nichsei yavam. She'ein li yavam ben acher. Oh, okay. Remember last time we had Shimon had Avraham and Yitzchak. So now Shimon doesn't have any other children. He died. So the only possible Yoresh as far as a son is concerned would be this suffix. Asabatoin, so suffix b'no shalames. I think the word mess is a little bit ambiguous. What he means, mess is Reuben, the first mess. But now Shimon died, right? Below Shalayov. See, we never had a word for the deceased brother. We never had a word. He calls him a mess, as opposed to Shimon, who's the Yavam. Now, Kevin She'en Liyavam Ben, so the Saba is claiming that he's the only Orich. Why? Because the suffix is not the son of Shimon. Shimon has no other children. So if a man dies without children, assuming there's no Yibum, then his Yerusha goes back to his father. A suffix going to Ben Ayavam. I'm the son of Shimon. Who Ben Kodem Lireshes Saba, and he comes before the grandfather. So now he gives us general summary. Bishnei Alfanim, in both cases and scenarios that we described, Ein Echem Muchsa. Shneim Hein B'Safik. It's an all or nothing proposition. Sheitachin Shakol Shal Saba, Yitachin Shakol Shal Yavam or Shal Safik. Therefore, Moment Amuto B'Safik. All right, so this leads us to the Mishnah here on the bottom half of Daf Lamed Ches Amud Aleph. Shomeres Yavam. So her husband died without children. She needs Yibum. Shenaflu la nechasu. Her father died, and now she inherits her father's estate. Let's just think about it. The question is, does she own that money, or since there's a zika to her late husband's brother, therefore the money that she inherits from her father now accrues to the Yavam. I have a feeling this has to do with Yesh Zika. That's what I'm guessing. I don't know. Right? We have a principle, Mashakana Isha Kansa Violet. A woman, let's say, a married woman is walking on the street and she finds a diamond ring to dramatize. That belongs to her husband. So even though she's inheriting her father's property, her husband now gets rights to that estate of her father. Yes, that's why it's a good idea to marry a rich girl, I guess, right? I don't know. But the complicated case here is that he's not married to him. It's only a Zika. That's what I think is going on here. Let's see. Modim Beit Shammai uBeis Hillel. I think I have machlokas whether Zika is a Kenyan Gomer or not, I guess. Shemocheres v'nosenes v'kayim. She's the Bible, not what we said. We thought that maybe through Zika, the Yavam is the Balabas. No. Mocheres v'nosenes v'kayim. Kayim means that it's a valid sale or a valid gift. Mesa. So I'm not sure what the question is here. Mesa means that now her possessions go to the Yoresh. Maybe the Mishnah wants to know whether or not the Yavam has a din of a Yoresh. That should certainly be dependent on Zika. Let's see. Ma yase b'ksubasa. The Mishnah wants to know not about her inheritance from her father, whatever it might be, but rather about the monomasayim of a ksuba. So what's the general halacha here if it wasn't a case of shomeres yavam? Let's say, what happens when a woman dies? Okay. Let's say she was fully married and then she died. So what happens to her ksuba? I don't think there is a ksuba in that case. A ksuba means if her husband died or he divorces her. If she died, the ksuba is gone. He says here, Kigon mono liksuba salmona grusha masayim liksuba psula dosefes to nixates barzal or shum liksubasa b'nechasim anichnasim v'yotziv ima karkos v'avodim otzon sha'isha machnisa lebayla b'toras nixay malmud sheguf anichas shalav aperishal bayla mayasa b'nechasim elu. Oh, now we're ready for the suffer. Ha'im yorshei ha'av Shel ha'isha notlim osam. That would make sense. Right? So a woman dies and she's not married. So her Yerusha gets passed on through her father's family. But here, it wasn't just a woman who died, but she was a shomeres yavam. So should we say that now as a shomeres yavam, it's keilu ishus, the yavam, and therefore he has rights to inherit his so-called wife. So there's a battle here between the Yavam and her father, or those relatives that come through her father, as to who should inherit this Shomeres Yavam when she dies. Again, intuitively, I would have said it depends on Zika, but maybe not. Maybe Zika is not enough to give you a Shev Yoresh. Is Beit Shammai Omrim Yachloku Yorshei Abal and Yorshei Ha'av. If I understand correctly, is basically another example of Maman Amuta B'Safek Cholki. Let's see if anybody says that. He's got a footnote here. Do you have any footnote here that applies the principle of Maman Amuta B'Safek Cholki? Because I'm not seeing it offhand here, but that should be what's going on. But it's interesting because this is not the same Yachloku that we've been talking about until now. Until now, we've been talking about a Chalukah generated by a suffix when that suffix is b'mitzius. We don't know the reality. We don't know if he's ben shiva this or ben tesha. But I think that here it's a whole different type of suffix. Suffix we don't know what the din should be. What is the status of a yomam?
Rashi, when he speaks about
right, the suffix nesua v'zocha yovam chatzi yushasa misafik. Al yorish is suffix nesua. It's no. Zachi b'pal. Aval b'ksubasa. Modu Beit Shammai. V'cheskes abali. Is differentiating between two possessions, two properties. She has properties that were hers from Mikadmas Dinan. Then she has properties which she has rights to through the Ksuba. What does that mean? Usually Ksuba means her properties now belong to him. What properties does she gain through the Ksuba? Her husband is still alive. Her husband died, correct? She's a Shomeres Yavam. So she has rights to collect her ksuba, right, from the estate of her late husband. That's called ksuba. Now she dies. So those properties, like Mona Masayim, which she has rights to collect from her late husband, they accrue to Shimon, right, to the Yavam. I think Rashi's saying. In other words, when Beit Shammai says Yachloku, which means that the Yorshei Av have rights to her possessions, that doesn't apply to Suba collection. That's Becheskas Haba. That has nothing to do with the Av. So go directly from the Baal to the Isha. And therefore what? Therefore the Yavam steps into the shoes of the Baal to inherit the Shomeres Yavam. And the Yoshev have no rights to that money. But let's say she has monies, like we said, she inherits from her father. So in that case, we're not sure about the status of Yorshei Av, that Yorshei Av are claiming that just like a woman that died without any children, the estate goes to her father. Here too, she dies and her father inherits her. But should we say no? She's a shomeres yavam, and the yavam should get the yerusha. So again, we're asking. We don't need diagrams here. It's not. We're not having a suffix about who's related to who or anything like that. It's a conceptual suffix. I think we're analyzing the status of Zika. Again, there's certain nechasim, Rashi says, that belong exclusively to the Yavam, replacing his brother. But then there are other nechasim, like we call them like general nechasim, which have nothing to do with the ksuba, and her possession over those nechasim can be inherited either by Yorshei Av or Yorshei Yavam. We don't know which has the Yerusha rights. Beit Shammai omrim yachloku Yorshei Baal and Yorshei Av. Beit Hillel omrim nechasim v'cheskasam, which means b'cheskas Yorshei Habal. Now I'm hoping that doesn't mean that we're talking about the money of Haksuba, because Rashi said the money of Haksuba was not the subject of the Machlokes between Beit Shammai and Beit Hillel. Everyone agrees that it goes to the Yavam. So what does it mean? Beit Hillel Omer Nechasim B'cheskasam. Ksuba B'cheskas Yorshei Abal. And Rashi points out that even Beit Shammai agreed to that. But then there are other nechasim which are called nechnasim v'yotzim ima. What does that mean? Nechnasim v'yotzim ima. We're talking about maybe nichsei malug. That's the impression I'm getting here from the commentator. Does anybody spell out that it's nichsei malug? No. Okay, so let's just think about this. According to Beis Hillel, nechasim b'cheskasim, we'll leave the nechasim in their status quo situation, in their chazak, which means ksuba b'cheskas Yorshei Abal. That's number one. Right, so when her husband died, and she's still alive, she has rights to the nichsei Abal. What do I mean by nichsei Abal? Let's say the one of a sign, etc. Now, she never collected nichsei Abal. She died, and now the Yavam, through Zika, steps into the place of his brother. And therefore, b'cheskes Yorshei Abal. So we're completely cutting out the Yorshei Av with regard to nechasim that she should have collected from her late husband, because those nechasim are earmarked for the yavam. Why they earmarked for the yavam? I'm assuming, and again, I'm not 100% sure about this, that the yavam replaces his brother. Those nechasim that came from her brother, because from his brother, meaning from her late husband, they go back into that part of the Yerusha which the Yavam has rights to collect. But then there's something called nechasim hanichnasim biyotzim ima. What is that? These are, I think, are nechasim from yesterday. They don't belong to her husband. They are her possessions. Those possessions, just 1 second. Her husband could inherit them, but her husband died in this case. Now she dies. So on these nechasim, Beit Shammai said we split them. Does Beit Shammai recognize the logic of Yorshei Av, even with regard to nechasim and nechnasim v'yotzim ima? Or shall I say only with regard to nechasim nechnasim v'yotzim ima? Because again, the other category of nechasim is the ksuba, and that we said even Beit Shammai would agree that we completely cut out the Yorshei Av. So Beit Shammai's machlokus Beis Hillel is limited to nechasim and nechnasim v'yotzim ima, which are her nechasim. And when she dies, the Av says, "I inherit my daughter's nechasim," and that's what happens. But the Gemara has a safek, which is Beit Shammai's, Beis Hillel's opinion, that nechasim and nechnasim v'yotzim ima are b'cheskes Yorshei Av. Okay, that makes sense. So what was Beis Shammai's position? No. Even nechasim hayotzim and nechnasim ima, we have to introduce the rights of the yavam. Only by the ksuba, which is part of the marriage relationship with the Baal, and now the yavam takes over for the Baal. Even though she died before they consummated the yavam, but that's a different issue. But Shomer's yavam already jacks up the brother to the status of his late brother, and therefore anything that's given to her through ksuba now goes back to the husband, who in this case is the yavam. And on that, there's no machlokes between Beis Hillel and Beit Shammai. What is the contention? What is the issue? Nechasim and nechnasim v'yotzim ima. And in the case of a woman who's married, the Yorshei Av are out of it. They don't have any shayla. The Baal will be Yorshei Ishta. And now, according to Beis Hillel, at least the Yavam is Yorshei. No. That's Beit Shammai. Beit Shammai has, I keep getting confused. Beit Shammai is the one who has as far as to say that the Yavam has a claim to the Chasim Hayotzim and the Chasim Yotzim Ima, because a Baal Yorish is Ishta. No, I'm sorry. I keep making the same mistake over and over again. That's Beis Hillel. Beis Hillel says what? The Yorshei Av. Beit Shammai makes sense of it because Habal Yorish is Ishto. So why are you excluding the Yavam? Beis Hillel might be saying, Ein Zika. If Ein Zika, or maybe Zika is only Drabanan on a Deraisa level, there's no Zika, and therefore the father always inherits his daughter. Why should it be different here? A husband could have inherited his daughter, but he's not around. He died. What are you going to tell me, Beis Hillel? What are you going to say? That the Yavam replaces Yavam. That's the Svar of Beit Shammai. Say, no, the Yavam, what does the Yavam have? He's got Zika, that's it. Zika is not worth a dime. And a woman dies, her father will inherit her. That's Beis Hillel. Beit Shammai come up with a svara that I think jacks up Zika to a higher level and allows us to apply the principle of Habal Yorish Ishta. But that's only a suffix, and therefore Yachbod.
The focus is in whether treat the like a Russell.
Correct, and the Yavam now becomes like a Baal through Zika, and that's Beit Shammai's svara to say that the Yerusha now goes to the Yavam, or at least that's one svara amongst two. Beis Hillel doesn't seem to even recognize the validity of that svara because all you have here is Zika. And in the next line it says, but Kansa, that's already a different story. If before she died, he was miyabim, then Harei ki ishto l'chol davar. I mean, I don't even know why the Mishnah had to bother mentioning that. Maybe Harei ki ishto l'chol davar has nothing to do with Yerusha. Maybe that's a separate paragraph in the Mishnah. Maybe Harei ki ishto l'chol davar means that bia generates full-fledged ishus. But certainly, I would say it's upgrade without even, thinking twice about it. He certainly, the Yavam, after he marries her, certainly should inherit her. For example, let's say he's kones her, and she wants to get out of the marriage. She doesn't need chalitza. She needs a get, because once he implements Yibum, she's a full-fledged Eishes Ish. And therefore, if she dies, he inherits her. Ubelvad, shetehei ksuba al nichsei baila rishon.
That's why he said that it's the Hodava bat, she gets ksuba from the first.
In other words, the Yavam, now that he's Mekayim Yibum, he doesn't have rights to whatever nechasim she inherits from her previous husband. Is that what we're saying?
No, he's got to pay. If he divorces her, then he has to give the ksuba from his brother's estate. So he hasn't got a field of ksuba from his estate, from his brother's estate.
Interesting. And you would have said that now he's like a full-fledged husband. And now he has chiyuvei ksuba because of the marriage that he's generated. No, it goes back to the the deceased brother.
Yeah. That's why he's mentioning. I think that's what he's saying. That's why everything bad.
Ubulvad means the exception of. He's not 100% a husband. He has no chiyuvei ksuba as a husband does because she has rights to ksuba from her previous husband. Is that what you're saying?
No, yes, ksuba.
Oh, he does have to give.
It's not his estate, from his brother's estate.
Oh. No, it's the ksuba is collectible from his brother's estate. But why isn't there a new, that's the chiddush of the Mishnah, but what's the logic here? Why why doesn't his marriage to her create new ksuba obligations such that she could collect from his estate? Maybe the brother didn't leave much of an estate.
The reason of Yibum is that if the Kushma is
since he's not marrying her on for himself, his own initiative, so therefore he doesn't have to pay his own ksuba. She collects her ksuba from his late brother's estate.
I mean, if he did the chalitza, didn't marry her at all, from brother's estate.
Right. That remains frozen as it was. Nothing changes. But now he marries her through Yibum, and now he should be obligated, and we should generate new shibudim from his possessions, his estate. No, he's only marrying her l'shem Yibum. He's not marrying her because he wants to marry. That's what we have. So what do? We finished the previous sugya with a couple of scenarios with the Saba and Nichsei Safek, Nichsei Yavam, who died, and so forth and so on. And then we covered this Mishnah. So, B'li Neder, it seems to me that we're up to the Gemara on the bottom of Lamed Ches Amud Aleph. Is that correct? So that's where we'll stop for today. And this I want to make a note of. That's for the Rishon.
So you think about 11? And on Sunday?
Yeah, I tell you, it all depends on finding a parking place. If I find a parking place, I would say 11:25. Just give me a few minutes, to climb the steps. But you know what I mean? But last time I was late and we had to add another couple of minutes because of the parking situations. Sometimes it's really a challenge. In theory, I can park right in front of the building. And now that's, you just have to, pay for that. But it's peanuts. I don't mind paying for it. But there wasn't even a spot in front of the building. So then you have to make a whole move until you find a park. It's the big problem in Kataman. I don't know if we don't have such a problem. There's never a problem. In front of my building is endless park.
Have a good Shabbos.
Yeah, have a good Shabbos. So wait, just before you go, Ruvain, one little question for you.
Yeah.